Hey, welcome back, and I'm here with Anthony Smith, our lead economist, with the shipper update today. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk
You're
about
always
the
welcome,
latest.
my friend.
You're
Oh,
too kind. You're too kind. So today we're going to talk about, once again, manufacturing. One of the areas that I've been watching closely throughout the economy. The latest target going to be the Mid-Atlantic. So we're looking at the Philly Fed Index. And
okay.
we spoke about some of the Fed indices before. I mean, we've talked about the Dallas one, the Empire State Index, the Philly Fed Index, or regional indices that show what manufacturing is doing within that region. And
So Philly is the Mid-Atlantic region. It's not
correct.
just Philly.
Right, correct.
Okay, all right.
And so it's kind of giving an idea of what's happening within that region.
Okay.
With manufacturing specifically, it's a little bit different. It's still a survey or diffusion index, so to speak. But it's a little bit different than the ISM. With the ISM PMI from the Institute for Supply Management, they have it based around the number of 50. So anything above 50 is indicative of expansion. Anything below 50, indicative of contraction. With the Philly Fed Index, it's anything above 0. And so we just saw last month it was at a 50.2. And so 50.2 was the highest level in nearly, I want to say right around 50 years. And so
50 years.
50 years.
I thought you were going to say like 6 or 7 months.
No, 50
years. Wow.
Yeah. And so
Okay,
it's
so
an
that
historic
means
high.
what does 50.2 mean? I know it means expansion.
Right,
What is
right.
what is that?
A
Who
rapid
are they
increase.
surveying? Who are they talking to?
Correct, and so it's a rapid increase for those manufacturers within that Mid-Atlantic region. So we're looking at an increase for those that are, it's one of those things how COVID is spurring a lot of activity. And so not just at the high level manufacturing level, but also a little bit further downstream, we're looking at some of these regional indices because it's not gonna look at the entire national trend. But that's not to say that it doesn't have actual national implications. So in the next chart here, we're gonna see how the Philly Fed Index correlates with the ISM PMI. It's not going to be a one-to-one, but it is something that we're going to see a general trend when they move in the same direction.
Gotcha.
Typically.
Yeah, it would. This is supply chain, ISM PMI.
Correct.
Really, and purchasing managers index. They're looking at what the effect is on the supply chain, and obviously, in purchasing managers heavily reliant on the supply chain. This is general manufacturing stuff. Is this looking forward, or is this what is going on right now?
So the previous one that we just saw was the general trend. This one in the blue line is going to be our future expectations for the Philly Fed Index. And so that's one of the things I love about these regional indices is that they break them out into different components. We can see what's happening with new orders. We can see what the expectation is right now and what the expectations is going to be in the future. Also, you can kind of see what's happening with new orders and employment. And that's one of the big areas is employment. The other big area is prices. The prices component of this index hit an all-time high. And so that's just kind of driving the point home of increased pricing upstream, a really scarcity of commodities all across the country and each region. And that's really gonna play into increased prices downstream when we get closer to the consumer level.
Inflationary pressures.
Correct.
Inflationary pressures are high. So this takes in new orders, pricing. Is it taken to backlogs or service cycles?
Backlogs are included, deliveries are included as well.
Cycles.
And so all of these are gonna be taken into account when we're looking at manufacturing. And so this is one of the things I know I had those theories around why no one is talking about pricing, but I think this is gonna be something that we're gonna really see more and more on the headlines is what's going on with manufacturing pricing.
Inflationary pricing.
Correct.
Across the board, not just lumber.
Not just lumber. I mean, we're looking at steel. We're looking at anything and everything that goes into appliances. And that's one of the other big areas is we're looking at housing starts. The downstream impacts, we always talk about, the appliances that go into it. Those appliances are in a huge backlog. And we're even hearing manufacturers talk about, or home builders talk about ordering those appliances ahead of time in the expectation that there's going to be a shortage.
And that put pressures on warehousing, which we just talked to Mark Solomon about. There's not enough warehousing space right now, and so on and so forth. So it starts to get into that, which we've talked about before in different indices. It almost starts to have that self-limiting effect eventually, right, if it goes on too far.
Correct.
There yet, or what are you seeing?
I think we are there. Once we start to see people pull forward, I think that's kind of the early stages. So it's kind of like those small trends, but on a macro level. So with the gas shortage that just happened or the pipeline shutdown, a lot of people started pulling that supply forward.
Yes,
we're seeing those appliances now getting pulled forward by those builders. And so that's almost like that effect of, I got to get ahead of the curve because there's a shortened supply. And there's been significant delays on trying to get those appliances in.
It causes more delays, causes prices to go up, and then people start to see that confidence starts to shrink, self-limiting effect moving forward. Do you
Correct.
see a slowdown in the future here or what?
I do see a slowdown somewhat, but I think right now when we're looking at those elevated prices and those final goods, they're going to be elevated for some time.
Yeah.
I think as we kind of ease into it. And so I think it's going to be an easing factor, not something that's going to fall off overnight, so to speak.
Yeah, it's not a cliff.
Correct. And so when we're looking at home prices, that's definitely, I think, going to be one of those areas where it's going to remain elevated, just going to be the rate of increase is going to slow down in a sense.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony. We'll catch up with you again tomorrow, I guess, or Thursday.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Awesome.